I don't know.
I mean, the point should be here is just that it's a false claim, and there's no reason to make a false claim when you could just make a true claim and make the same point. So is it a lie? Well, it is false.
The majority of people are getting it. Like you say false. So hold on. When we call it false, half-truth, lie, we lose value in those statements if we're not incredibly accurate about why we call it that.
Okay, here's a question.
Black,
if I were to say that you took fucking that people are taking animal antibiotics to like treat themselves for like some bacterial infections, and I was talking about penicillin, do you think that would be a lie, or what? How would you describe that statement?
That would be misleading, half-truth, whatever, because that's a fucking well-known medicine that's being taken.
This claim was worse.
But there is room for
even straight up wrong. It's false.
There's room for fucking joke because no one knew about ivermectin until people started fucking taking it from the pet shops.
No, well, wait, hold on. Qualify that statement.
The majority of people. I'm sorry. The majority of people did not know about ivermectin.
It wasn't like mainstream. Yeah, in the United States, that wasn't like mainstream news, right? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So the average person didn't know about it. So there is room to joke about, dog, he's taking horse dewormer, because the majority of people are getting it from the fucking pet shop.
It wasn't. Wait. A couple things. It wasn't a joke, but the reason it's a false claim is because he didn't actually take horse dewormer. Ivermectin pills are not horse dewormers.
Yes,
horse dewormers come in a specific vector.
Prescription, yes, but he goes to his Twitter account and says, "I was prescribed ivermectin," and by saying that, he's saying he's taking the exact same thing all the fucking crazies are taking.
It's not the exact same thing. Actually, it's the same. It's the same active. It's the same active ingredient.
For all intents and purposes, saying he's taking the same thing that the crazies are taking,
and that's fine. And that's fine. But the point is, when you phrase it as it's a horse dewormer, you've made a false proposition, and you open yourself up to rightfully being called a liar, at minimum being said you're making a false statement, and and now you have all this trouble to deal with. You have this whole thing to deal with because you just decided to go the extra step and make a false claim instead of a true one.
That's what I was trying to say. Like, there's definitely a valid criticism to raise against Joe Rogan and like him, like encouraging people to potentially go and do dumb shit like that. And it's the same issues that I had with CNN. Like, looking back, because I fell for a lot of the shit, to be honest. Like, I was in the Trump train for a little while, but like looking back, I'm like, there is so much valid criticism to be made against Trump and like all the failures during his administration. There wasn't a need to go the extra mile. They ran stories talking about like how he put fucking ketchup on a well-done steak when he went to like the best steakhouse in America. That was a real fucking story they ran.
Oh, I think what's bothering me,
there's just so much better criticisms they could have levied instead of going to these like petty little attacks on people.
And I think I've been consistent in that I wish they hadn't made this. There were better things to go after. It was inaccurate, and we're obviously dealing with the fallout. We've lesson hopefully learned by CNN. No fucking memeing, because, whatever, it turns into this. And, maybe CNN shouldn't be fucking memeing because it's one of the few news organizations.
They weren't memeing. Why do you mean they were memeing? Why do you keep saying they were memeing? They weren't memeing. It was an attempt to mislead, to make the medicine seem less.
You said yourself you don't know if on the back end they were aware or not, and whether or not.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's not relevant. That is an attempt to make. You're trying to damage, right, the appearance of this medication. Like,
yes, it was the lazy way to do it by calling it horse dewormer instead of saying Joe Rogan is taking a medicine that has not been proven or shown in any way, shape, or form, and is often cited by wrongfully read studies to have any effect on COVID. Look at this dumbass. Yes,
can I ask a question real quick? Hold on 1 second. So the question here is on percentages. So before COVID, what percentage of usage of ivermectin was for animals, right? Because I don't think any of us would have an issue if the cure for COVID or something like that was aspirin, and everyone's saying, Joe Rogan is taking literal headache medicine. So the question comes down to is what percentage?
Well, it's weird. It's weird to talk about percentages because if I had to guess, total bullshit, by the way, my guess is that the percentage of almost every single medication on Earth is going to be disproportionately in favor of animals just because there's so many more animals than humans. That'd be my guess. Like, there's probably way more animals that have used like antibiotics than humans, because don't we have like so many animals per human? Like, so that's probably always going to be the case.
Well,
at one point in time, vitamin B12 was mostly given to animals.
I think we can certainly make that a case, but if this is a drug, a prescription drug that no one had really heard of before, and the only usage for the most part was towards animals, I don't think it's that crazy to do that. Again, just on the same thing of saying that if he was saying he took aspirin, if CNN was saying, Indy's taking a headache drug, and then you get a bunch of people like, it's not just a headache drug; it's actually good for lowering your risk of heartaches, or whatever.
So Dan, can I just respond to that? So it's actually not the case that it's ivermectin. Certainly, it's more known now. I'll grant that, but it's not the case that it was this like arcane medicine before, even in the United States.
I'm not saying. I'm asking what the majority usage before was.
Oh, but okay, but if that's your standard, if your standard is majority usage, then you're going to start.
Let's say vast majority.
Like
so let's say 90%. I would put it that way. Yeah.
At one point in time, you could. It wasn't.
Okay, we're not talking about one point in time. We're talking about now.
Okay, in 2005. Okay, but I'm sure there are plenty of things that we can make the same case for in terms of pharmaceuticals for animals.
Cocaine was used as a pharmaceutical back in the day, but no one's arguing here that that's not the case.
I'm just not understanding the point here. Like what?
Okay,
let's say
I don't know how it can be so difficult. Like there's a lot of uses for different products, but if the majority use that everyone understood for the most part is into a single bucket, I don't think it's unreasonable for people to classify as that. Now I can come up with more examples. I'm just using the aspirin one.
The problem is that what is the goal of, what is the utility of that classification? If it was a conversation among physicians, that would be one thing. But when you're having a conversation to the public, you're not calling it a horse dewormer because that might be what you believe is the most accurate way to classify and address the drug. You're addressing it that way to make it sound ridiculous and foolish and stupid, and like everybody taking it.
Right.
No, but it's not stupid because it's a horse dewormer. It's stupid because the antiviral properties haven't been proven in actual patients. Not because it's a horse dewormer.
Yeah, no, wait, we're right there. We're right there on my fucking thought. So yes, you're right. But the majority of people taking it for COVID are taking it from fucking pet stores as a horse dewormer. So what is wrong with lumping him in that way when you're telling him he's stupid?
Yeah, but you could add. That could be a separate criticism. Like if they really wanted to do a special about this, if they really wanted to be like surgical, they can address the issues that they have with Joe Rogan using this and then promoting it that way, and then bring up the fact that like all these people are like buying out like farm supply stores. You don't have to say that he's taking fucking like.
So if the person arguing that made the horse dewormer comment, and someone on the other side of the panel said, right, well, to be fair, it's not horse dewormer specifically, but the majority of people in the country are taking horse dewormer. But the point is that Joe Rogan's dumb for taking it, and the other panel said, yes, it is.
No, but now you sound dumb because you started with a lie. You started with a lie.
Okay, hold on. This is much easier. It's even a horse drug. Okay, if the cure was ketamine, would we all be upset if they were saying he's taking a fucking horse tranquilizer?
Someone brought this up in chat. Like, again, ketamine has uses in fucking humans.
Yeah, exactly.
So does ivermectin.
Well, yes, but again...
Well, wait, what if somebody went to do ketamine treatments for, like, depression or something, and you're like...
People do ketamine regular...
Yeah, I know, but let's say you do that, but then somebody says, like, oh, you're gonna go take a party drug to cure your mental illness? Good job, dude. Like,
ketamine is well known by people. It is already well known, so there's no real room for fucking making the joke, Joe Rogan's taking fucking horse tranquilizer. There's no room for that because we all know about it. So it's like, actually, ketamine's like used for other fucking things, right? There's no room for that joke. So you lose all ability to give any charity to anyone saying that fucking thing. And then you can say, yeah, you're trying to mislabel him in a fucking super negative way with no real good reason behind it. But with the horse tranquilizer thing, it's like only idiots are taking this because it's not proven to do anything with COVID. Most people are getting it from a fucking pet store. There's room to make that fucking comment.
By the way, I would just add that I'm actually very skeptical that the majority of ivermectin does go to animals. It's used maybe in the United States it might, but I'm not even sure of.
Right, and in my comments on Reddit, that's exactly what I said.
I don't think that's true. And also, by the way, I'll just add a couple of things. So number one, there actually is an indication to treat COVID patients with ivermectin, and that is if they're from a region that has strongyloides, and if you're going to give steroids as part of the COVID treatment. The reason for that is because if you do that, then the strongyloides goes crazy, takes over because you gave steroids, your immune system that fights parasitic infections can't work as well anymore. And then you actually need to kill off that parasite in order, or else the patient will get disseminated strongyloides inside. So the point is that here's the ultimate point. The point is that ultimately this boils down to the same thing. I don't understand how anyone can get past this. It's a false claim. And you could make a joke without... And I don't even know if it was a joke. It didn't read like that to me.
It wasn't a joke.
Even if it was.
It wasn't a joke. No.
It was meant to ridicule. That was the point.
We have some time before the attack.
Yeah, and so the point is, if your goal is to discredit someone and ridicule them, and you are doing that by relying on a false claim, you not only will that backfire on you, but you go against your goal, because if he calls out that false claim, like, that's going to have the opposite. He's going to be vindicated.
And not only that, but like the timing is really shitty too, right? Because we already have like a large swath of the country that's like CNN is fake, like fake news.
Agreed.
Like,
yes, I agree.
It's like the cherry on top. Like, it's an easy way for people to just like put the nail in the coffin and be like, yeah, fuck CNN forever.
What bothers me is two things. One, it feels like we're jumping through a lot of hoops to not give any charity to CNN's take. And second, it bothers me that people seem to care more about CNN making a flippant comment, I understand. If you thought CNN is lying, I understand why you focus on it. But if we focus on it as a flippant comment, I don't understand why people hate that more than Joe Rogan's pissy attitude and being upset that they made that fucking flippant comment.
No, we
then start weaponizing that.
We hate Joe Rogan more, but the thing is,
like,
we can control what we say on our side.
Wasn't this like in the byline at the bottom of the screen too, like sitting there the whole time? Like,
apparently I missed the segment. I saw like the little clip of them showing his Instagram story and then like making some commentary, but I missed, I guess, a panel where they go back and forth on this.
Yeah, it was like a 3-minute video that we watched and it wasn't until the very end that they brought in another lady and she finally said, like, this is actually a drug that's been prescribed to like hundreds of millions of people. It's well known for this.
But why isn't Joe Rogan talking about that? And it's like, well, at least we had someone come in and fucking correct the record. Like,
because even when I watched it, I was I said that I think my final ruling was that this video was as close as you could get to a flat out lie without being there. It was that close. We can watch the whole video if you want. Actually, fuck it. Somebody link it. Somebody link the CNN.
Yeah,
Link it. We'll watch it.
And by the way, fuckers, like, if you ever wanted to fucking make your Joe Rogan liking Sims over him for nothing comments, they're dead now. They're fucking done.
No, you've been on his dick for too many years for that to happen so quickly, my friend.
It was actually only 1 year. All of 2018, I watched like all his fucking things.
Yeah, but you kept defending him till.
Hey, Tabor, why don't you calm down?
What? Hey, I'm trying to dispel this rumor that I hate women. Okay, hate Lycan too. I'm kidding.
Adriana's gone and she's never coming back because of you, Tabor. Thanks.
That's a flat out lie, and you know it.
Link the video. Who has it?
Not I, said the fly.
Okay, never mind. I got it from CNN. Okay, we're watching this on my stream. Good luck.
More breaking news this evening. Joe Rogan, an extremely popular podcaster, announced on social media today that he has COVID.
Joe Rogan announces he has COVID, praises horse dewormer ivermectin. That's the little title for this thing, but okay.
Rogan has said young, healthy people don't need to get vaccinated. In his statement on social media, Rogan said he has taken several therapeutics to recover.
I don't need to watch the video.
Turns out I got
They
COVID.
fucked up. God damn it.
Wait, did you never watch the original video? What do you think that?
No, pause it. So
no, wait, no, wait, wait. You're gonna watch the whole thing now. You're gonna watch the whole thing now. I'll top 1.5 it. Okay, here we go.
So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything.
One of those drugs he mentioned, ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses. CDC says there's no evidence it works on COVID. Its increased usage has only led to a substantial increase in overdoses after a push by some on the far right seeking vaccine misinformation. Perspective now from our chief media correspondent and anchor of CNN's Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter, and Dr. Lena Wen, a CNN medical analyst and former Baltimore health commissioner. Brian, this is obviously someone who has said on his podcast that healthy young people probably don't need to get vaccinations. What's he saying about his condition?
Yeah, and he is one of the most influential figures in all of media, especially among young men. He has a podcasting deal with Spotify worth $100 million, but in the past he has downplayed the vaccine. And in this case, he seems to have admitted he has COVID because it's hurting him in the pocketbook. He had to postpone or reschedule one of his upcoming stage shows. So you'd think the economic consequences might get people's attention and make people think, make his fans think differently about the threat of COVID. But he's trying to portray this as if he is feeling better now, he's doing better now because of this cocktail of drugs and medications that he has taken. Of course, some of these are under emergency use authorizations. Others have been, discouraged by the CDC and the FDA. But when you have a horse deworming medication that's discouraged by the government, that actually causes some people in this crazed environment we're in to actually want to try it. That's the upside down where we're in with figures like Joe Rogan.
So, Dr. Wen, ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals. Why are people using this? I mean, I know, it's being spread online and stuff, but what is the theory that it works?
So it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds into this video before this lady on the right, thank God, And this is the only reason why I said this whole video wasn't a flat out lie. It's because this lady on the right actually knows what she's talking about. But up to this point, if you've been watching this, in your mind, Joe Rogan is literally eating fucking horse paste like a dumb fuck.
Hold on. Yes, but then so far, I've already I'll talk about my concession at the end of this video. But overall, still, again, aside from the horse dewormer comments, they're still saying the whole CDC is not fucking recommending this for anything. Nothing's been proved.
Fucking byline at the bottom that's sitting there the entire fucking.
Here's what I want you to do, Lycan. Here's what I want you to do. Okay, this is basic human shit. I want you to go find a girlfriend. Okay, and then when you're dating her, I want you to lie every single time where you go every night. But I want you to be half true with everything you say, and I want you to see how long she trusts you for. That's what I want you to do.
Similar.
That is the exact same thing. You're saying, well, they were right about that thing, and they exaggerated or lied about that thing. They were right about that. You can't do that.
This is me saying I'm going to see a fucking rom-com and it's a James Bond movie. That's the extent of what this actually fucking means. And as far as consequential fucking whatever.
It's like saying I'm going to go see James Bond with 3 or 4 guy friends and instead you go with 1 girl. That's the equivalent of it. Yes.
No.
That's the equivalent of it.
Finish the video.
Okay,
and I'll
we're watching.
You could get away with that a couple times, but
you can't. You get away with that 1 or 2 times tops, and then your relationship is toast. That's what you get. Okay, hold on.
Well, I think there are some people who want to believe that there is a magic pill for COVID.
Now that you're watching it,
do you think what?
Lycan, do you think it was a joke? You were mentioning about.
Yeah, wait,
jokes.
hold on. Yeah, wait. 2 minutes, we'll finish it, and then he can answer. Although we already know the answer, but yeah, one second.
Agree that it works.
Well, I think there are some people who want to believe that there is a magic pill for COVID, which of course we would all want. But this is the main issue. So with ivermectin, not only is it that we know, not only are we saying that there's no evidence it works, it goes beyond that. We actually know that it doesn't work. There was a systematic review looking at 10 randomized controlled trials that were done in different countries, looking at different doses of ivermectin, and they found that there was no benefit for ivermectin in reducing mortality, death to COVID-19, no reduction in symptoms or duration of symptoms for COVID-19. So it does not work. And so when everything is risk and there is no benefit, then this is not something that should be done. And I think the greater harm here is that it provides this false reassurance. People are now going about not getting vaccinated, saying that they can do whatever they want with the understanding that there is this magic pill to save them at the end of the day, except that it's not a magic pill that actually works.
And then real quick, so 3 minutes and 20 seconds, she still hasn't explained why people would think it would work, number 1. And number 2, saying that we know it doesn't work is something you should probably almost never say unless you have a mountain of evidence. 1 year or 6 months and no good RCTs yet to try to say we know that it doesn't work. How fucking stupid would you look if eventually it came out, oh, actually it is partially effective, or it is effective with a regimen of other drugs or whatever. You'd look like a fucking moron. Even her statements are too strong now in retrospect, but all right, 30 seconds.
Downsides of taking it?
Well, every medication has side effects. And in this case, especially because people are using doses that are totally inappropriate. I mean, ivermectin is used in humans for things like parasites and scabies, but those are at low doses. When people are taking them in the very high doses as given for livestock, for horses, for example, then they could get nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, severe skin rash, extremely low blood pressure, and permanent liver damage. You could also die from overdoses of ivermectin. And I hope that people realize this and heed the advice of public health experts rather than Joe Rogan.
Dr. Lena Wan, Brian Salter, appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first thing, can you rekey Cake's API keys?
I already did it.
Okay. Second thing, I don't like that, and I think that was wrong. But let me get the full thought out before I get fucking bombarded.
Okay.
Iron deposit depleted.
I don't think that they came in hotter than I thought they did. I thought it was someone saying Joe's taking horse dewormer, like a normal talking head would. I didn't realize they fucking led with it, and they went a little harder they went too hard. They shouldn't have gone as hard into the horse dewormer shit, because they did it in a way that was far more they leaned into it too much. But when I say leaned into it, that makes it sounds like I'm leeway, and I'm not.
Okay.
But let's now turn it to a vacuum. Overall, the byline said horse dewormer. The fat dude on the left said horse dewormer. Anderson Cooper said horse dewormer. But after each of those comments was made a very reasonable, valid point about how this is ineffective. So, again, in a vacuum, can we fucking point to anyone that walks away from this focusing on Joe Rogan horse dewormer lie as missing the fucking plot? Can we at least say that?
I think I would argue that probably 90% of the people that watched that came away with that take. That's why it's such a
Oh, can we? Okay, then no. 90% of the people are fucking stupid and have no critical thinking skills.
Of course, everybody just flips the fucking news on while they're like getting ready for work, and they just see the byline and they shake their fucking head, and then they mute it and they let it roll, and they just make their coffee and shit, and then they go to work and they go about their day, and they don't listen to the rest of the fucking segment.
True.
I fucking hate everyone. I hate you all. Everyone who fucking operates that way. Fuck you.
Okay, but we all operate that way too. We don't research and read into every single fucking thing that we say.
Why is it that the one time?
Not everything, but goddamn, when someone says horse dewormer, I don't know. I don't fucking know. And like the idea that like the only people to me that walk away from that just focusing on the horse dewormer thing are the people that either that want ivermectin to be real or fucking hate mainstream media.
Okay, but here's the thing, like even if you don't like the fact that people operate this way,
you're
as
right.
a news organization, you
anyway.
should know that they do. Yeah, you should know that they do, and you shouldn't.
You're not
keep
wrong.
That in mind when making
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm unnecessarily triggered. Yes. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's I guess we've resolved this on my end. You can continue.
Okay, cool.
Nice try.
Who was the person who was talking about the aspiration?
That was me.
Okay. So real quick, the issue is not just that every study that we've done shows that it's extremely rare, if not non-existent. There's one study that was gone over just now on stream where there were over 300 trials, not a single one aspirated blood. There are other reports where they asked nurses who regularly aspirate if they've ever seen an aspiration. I think only 12% ever reported seeing it like once or twice in their career or something like that. The issue is more about anatomy. The recommended injection sites, and I could send you literature on this if you want, they're capillary rich, but they're devoid of major blood vessels. So if you are injecting in the appropriate site for the deltoid, you should not be injecting into a major vessel. If you are injecting into a major vessel, you fucked up the site, which is not easy. Which is hard to fuck up. You'd have to actually like really be trying to fuck it up. That's the main issue. And so capillaries are very small arteries. Vessels. They connect the arterial system to the venous system, to the arterioles and venules, and they have a diameter that's far smaller than the diameter of the needle itself. So the issue is, first of all, if you're injecting in the right site, you shouldn't be getting a major blood vessel. And if you do aspirate, you can traumatize the capillaries, which may increase your risk of getting leakage when you do actually do the injection after. So the point here is that if you inadvertently are in the wrong site, will you prevent a vessel injection? Maybe once in 100,000 or something. Maybe you will, but A, that's more easily corrected by getting the site right, and B, you have to counterbalance that policy with all of the problems you're speculating on. You can speculate on the other side of the coin. You could increase your risk of routine injection into a vessel by traumatizing the capillaries if you're aspirating, because aspiration is recommended for, it's not just like a quick aspiration. You have to hold it there for, I think, around 10 seconds or so. You can move the needle around while you're doing that. It increases a whole lot of things that can traumatize the vessels. So you'd also have to factor on the other side of the coin. Yeah, you may save a few, but you may also just start killing a lot more, or not killing, but like increasing your risk of intravascular injections more so than you're saving. The policy has been reviewed many times. It doesn't, every time that it's been reviewed, to my knowledge, there has never been a case where, at least in the United States that I'm aware of, that they've actually, in recent times, that they've actually recommended it. And every recommended time they have put a recommendation, they've recommended against aspiration.
Yeah, so I was just bringing that up in reference to, like, I don't know, I guess other issues that could be, or other, like, things that could be causing adverse side effects from the vaccine or something. And then the video was like, I don't know, doctors discussing it and then saying that that was supposed to be a good thing or something. So
yeah, I'm familiar with...
I don't claim to be an expert on that stuff, so...
Yeah, I'll just tell you. I'll just tell you.
A CMA and a phlebotomy certification. That's it. Okay. I don't know shit about.
I'll just tell you that. Yeah, I'm familiar with Campbell. He's.
I feel like I've outpaced him intellectually.
I wouldn't recommend him. He is one of those individuals who are between, from the videos I've seen of him, who are between. You know, like the Dunning-Kruger kind of like curve, where it's like before you're like an actual expert, you get to like this really like he's around there where it's like he's smart enough to mislead a lot of people who don't know otherwise, in a lot of the things he says in his videos, but. Which sucks, because the things he said, a lot of people are not going.
But do you think that's his intention? I don't watch a lot of his stuff.
I don't think
I watched some of his stuff on COVID, and I thought he was just trying to give like an objective like update on.
No. I think I agree that's what he's trying to do. I'm just telling you the effect. Because I don't think, like, for example, he says that like certain data wasn't available, or so it's not defined when in the Pfizer trial protocol. It clearly is. He just doesn't know how to open the protocol and read it, and how it's defined. He's not familiar with how clinical trials are done. But he'll like say on his video like, oh, they just didn't provide it anywhere. It's undefinable, or make statements like that, and everyone will buy that because his audience doesn't know any better. I don't think he's purposely doing it. I just think his familiarity with the field and his level of education is just not up to par to be able to make the statements that he's making, and he's not willing to take any contenders to, as far as I'm aware of, who are familiar with the field, who are able to refute the things he's saying. So, yeah.
I don't know. I heard him talking about a lot of other things, and then I heard him talking about like the issues with the vaccinated, like the waning of like the vaccination, and like how long it you are protected for versus like we can talk about getting the virus and stuff. And then he like made a point to like clarify that like, oh well, this is coming from an Israeli study that's not a peer reviewed paper, and it's not like peer review. That means like it hasn't like passed these certain standards.
It's also,
so I don't know. It's
also
trying to provide an objective coverage of this or something.
Yeah, that was also for one vaccine that that from data we're starting to see wanes more than other vaccines, and also the Israeli data does have some disanalogies to the U.S. data that don't necessarily extrapolate. Also, the waning, it depends on your outcome of choice. For infections, yes, but for serious infections, for hospitalizations, for death, not really. Like maybe a little bit, but it's holding strong. I'll also point out to you that Moderna has not waned nearly as much as Pfizer has, even from all the preprints that you look at. The data from it ranges from 76 to over 80%, even for asymptomatic infections. For the Delta variant, by the way, for Moderna.
Also, for my understanding is the Moderna and the Pfizer are essentially the same type of vaccine, but the Moderna dose, I think, was like 2 times as big or something. And that's why I think that's the theory.
Slightly over 3 times.
Oh, 3 times. So they were 3 times larger than
ours. Yeah.
People are thinking that might be
Pfizer dose is 30. Yeah, Pfizer dose is 30 micrograms, and the Moderna dose is 100 micrograms. They're very similar, and this is the dose of the active ingredient. This isn't like looking at overall, calculating the mass of the lipid nanoparticles. Yeah, it's the actual amount of like mRNA that's going to be transcribed into the virus. Yeah. So the one hypothesis is that it can be the dosage. Also, keep in mind that you are getting 2 shots, so it's really 60 micrograms versus 200 micrograms. Yeah. So that's one possibility. It maybe with more time Moderna will lay more, maybe not. But I do think one thing I think you'll hear that we really should stop doing, and a lot of people on both sides or all sides really. You'll hear people talk about COVID vaccinations as the vaccine. Like no, like we shouldn't be talking about the vaccine. We should be talking about the specific vaccines, because it's more and more clear that they're not equal. There are different. Yeah, there's difference in not just the risks, like for example, the rare risks.
But in like each one and their efficacy and everything.
Yeah, their efficacy is different. Moderna, I mean, at this point in my reading of the literature, if I had to recommend a vaccine, I would recommend Moderna. Like it's the most effective vaccine on the market, and the risk of myocarditis, even for the young age populations, is not any greater than the risk of not getting vaccinated. The risk of, even for 16 to 24, the risk is around 1 in 5,000, even for that young age group. And if you do get COVID, by the way, the risk for that age group is about 1 in 300. And if you consider the fact that young people are less likely to get COVID and just analyze their total risk, not just their conditional probability if they did get COVID, it's about 1 in 5,000, and the confidence intervals would overlap. So there really is no difference. It's not something, even for the young age group, that would influence your decision to get vaccinated with Moderna versus not. Now, in terms of like vaccinating with another vaccine, you'd have to balance that out against against the potential for increased waning versus Moderna. Also, I want to point out that this is happening in men more so than women, and there are potential long-term side effects of getting COVID in men, specifically versus women. One that's new and upcoming in terms of the research being done, but is not talked about a lot, which is erectile dysfunction. So if you get COVID,
that happens if you that happens if you get vaccinated or if you don't.
That's if you get COVID-19.
If you get COVID. Oh, yeah, if you get COVID. So the virons of COVID, they have tropism to the corpus callosum of the penis. And what they found was that both in mild cases and severe cases, 6 and 8 months after, this all started 6 and 8 months after they recovered, and they've tested negative for a long time. They've gotten severe erectile dysfunction, and they had to get surgery. And they took the penile tissue from the corpus cavernosa and they sectioned it, and they tested it actually for COVID. They looked under an electron microscopy. They saw it loaded with virons of COVID, and they did a PCR test, and they found that it was positive for COVID. So 8 months after they tested negative for COVID, their penis tested positive for SARS-CoV-2.
Wait.
And then they did, yeah.
What?
And then after they did there was other papers that followed up. They did epidemiologic work, and they looked at cases and control, so it's typical cross-sectional case control study. And they found, I believe it was around like an 18% absolute difference or so between.
I'm still stuck on their penises had COVID.
Yeah, their penises had. Okay,
like
so
it's
to be specific,
like it's a viral load is in your.
To be specific, the corpus cavernosa of the penis was loaded with SARS-CoV-2 virons 8 months after the initial infection. And that was shown on. So why is a different question. So there are I know in the testes there's ACE2 receptors. I'm not sure of the expression of ACE2 receptors in the corpus cavernosa, but for whatever reason,
what is it called? I looked up corpus callosum.
Corpus cavernosa.
Wait, I'm sorry.
No, not corpus callosum. Corpus callosum it's the corpus cavernosa. It's the part of the penis that's responsible for erection, for getting engorged with blood when you get erect.
Also, to be clear too, those ACE2 receptors, those are found all over the body, right? I think those exist in high concentration in the heart as well.
In varying concentration. There are some in the heart. There are some in the testes. It may have to do with more than just ACE2. It could be ACE2 concentrations. It could also be like just the architecture of the corpus cavernosa with tortuous capillaries and whatnot. Who knows? But the point is, for whatever reason, why they found that it was there, and then the epidemiologic data does favor it as well. So they looked at a greater sample size. They took 100 patients with COVID and not COVID, and they found that there was not just a statistically significant difference, but it had a large effect size. It was like a large absolute percentage difference, like 18% rate in getting erectile dysfunction from not. And then you'll ask, okay, well, what about adjusting for confounders? Well, they adjusted for obesity, didn't make a difference. They adjusted for depression, didn't make a difference. They adjusted for anxiety, didn't make a difference. Adjusted for age, didn't make a difference. And then you could ask, okay, well, does this thing happen in different age groups? So there was another study that was done, and it broke it down between ages 20 and 40, ages 40 and 60, ages 60 and up. And they had them rate their on one of their on a standardized survey for that's right, your penis erection, and there across every age group studied, it drastically decreased from before getting COVID to after getting COVID. And so, to whatever degree, what I want to point out to the people pointing out myocarditis in young men, based on data that's often unadjusted, by the way, data that's preliminary, data that is new and upcoming, and they want to argue a precautionary principle. I want to point out that there's arguably stronger evidence for this side effect of COVID that's not talked about that much, and potentially a permanent side effect, because there's much more concrete mechanistic data for it. There's also the data is actually confounder controlled in terms of the epidemiologic data, and I want them to also factor in the increased risk of potentially just having permanent damage to their child's penis if they don't get vaccinated.
Wait, but is that happening in children too? Like, do you know that? Like, wait.
So
okay,
we haven't. It hasn't been studied. It's been
because I don't have anything
studied.
Sorry,
I'll answer your question. It hasn't been studied in children that I'm aware of. It's been broken down. The youngest age group that I'm aware of is the 20 to 40 range. But however, what I will tell you is, so far it's happened to 2040. It's also happened to 4060. It's also happened to 60 up. Can it happen to now? I think that's enough for a precautionary principle if you're 18, 19, or 16. Like, is it going to be, like, oh, now they're immune? Like, maybe, but fuck, like, I'm not taking that risk.
So, because I don't have, again, I don't really have necessarily issues very much with the vaccine anymore. Like I did for a little while. Like I was nervous. Like I didn't know shit about it. I tried to read as much as I could and understand all this shit. But I got my vaccine. Like I work in healthcare anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I would have to get the vaccine. I had to get all the flu updates too. But I that's what we were talking about earlier. Like I'm not really for the mandates. Like, do you think that they should be mandating it for schools for kids?
Okay, so that's going to be a prescriptive question. So the easy things I can address, so we can have that conversation. I just want to get through the descriptive claims first, because the easier things to address are going to be the descriptive claims, because I don't have to delve into any moral philosophy for that. I can just point to, okay, well, this is this, that is that. No, this is actually a false claim. So as a point of process, we can get into that, but I'd like.
Well, I'm not really gonna push back on being vaccine hesitant. I think people should get the vaccine. I'm not really
No. But even being vaccine hesitant, But even vaccine hesitant is like a prescriptive kind of issue. What I just want to do first is I just want to get all the facts on the ground that you may have issues with. Like we talked about the aspiration issue. We talked about. So these are all going to be descriptive things. One thing also you mentioned is natural immunity. I'd like to cover that as well. And then we can have once all of that's cleared up, have the conversation about, okay, well, do we mandate or not? Because it's just a lot easier to deal with the descriptive claims than the prescriptive ones. Is that fair?
Sure. Also, I'll go ahead and add one more thing to your list that you're going to run down, because something that I was going to bring up is who was responsible for spreading it to who. I saw. I'll try to find it, but I saw a study or a video that was linking to a study that was talking about that the children actually weren't responsible for spreading it to their parents, that it was actually the other way around, that the 30 to 50 age group actually spread it to kids, and that they were asymptomatic or whatever, and then now that's what they're concerned about, whether or not those kids are going to spread it to the grandparents or vice versa, whether the 30 to 50
kids can spread
it to their grandparents or whatever.
Yeah,
so
kids can spread. I mean, replication competent culture positive viruses have been isolated from children. It's not really much of a question whether children have the ability to spread the virus. Of course they do. Can people spread it to kids as well? Sure. Both scenarios are very plausible. So I wouldn't be surprised if, an adult spread it to a child or a child spread it to an adult. I'm just not sure what the issue is.
I guess, I don't know. I was just that would just be, you said you were going to run down a list, so I was just giving you
okay, yeah. And the other
address, I guess.
I want to talk about, you mentioned natural immunity being superior to the vaccine. So that could very well be the case, especially for Pfizer. There were 2 studies. The best one was that I've seen was, they were both comparing it to Pfizer, which again, like I'll say, is not the most efficacious vaccine, although it's certainly better than no vaccine. The biggest issue with both of them is going to be survival bias. So what they're doing is they are taking individuals that have recovered from COVID and individuals who are vaccinated, and they are looking at the rate of infection, or rate of COVID breakthrough infections, breaking through from the natural immunity and breaking through from the vaccination. The issue with this is going to be the individuals who recovered from COVID compared to induces a survival bias that's stronger than the individuals who recovered from vaccination. Because especially if you have a significant portion of elderly people in your cohort, the rate of death from the vaccine is very low. The rate of death from the getting COVID is very high. And so what the individuals you're going to be left with who are going to make it into your study are going to be less sick overall in general. They're going to have, and that's actually what they found. They had they had a lower rate of confounders. They had a lower rate of immunosuppression specifically. It was like 2.5 times more individuals that were immunosuppressed in the vaccine group compared to the natural immunity group. Now,
wait, does that explanation, does that make sense, Nacho? Okay, so this is something real quick, just putting those into other words, because so that one YouTube channel we looked at, that guy had a study earlier that showed that natural immunity was more effective when it came to reinfection versus vaccination. But something that you have to worry about when it comes to people that are infected versus people that are vaccinated is, this is important because there was another study that came out of the UK showing that vaccinated people were dying more from COVID-19 than unvaccinated people. You have to be really concerned because of the uneven rollout of vaccinations to different age groups. So for instance, initially in the UK, for the really early data, initially it was only, I think it was like 60 and older were the ones getting the vaccine, and people younger than that weren't. So when you infect this population, even though the 60 and olders were vaccinated, they're still probably more likely to die because they're going to have more comorbidities, because they're older, they're naturally less likely to survive versus younger populations. Then a second thing you run into, and I didn't know, so this is just a question I had, Avi might have data on this, but a question that I had was when that guy was showing data for, look at how many people get reinfected with the coronavirus and have better outcomes than people that got vaccinated and get reinfected. Well, if you were infected one time and you survived, that's probably already you're already selecting for a certain type of people. Like, let's say, for instance, I take 1,000 people, 900 of them are morbidly obese and they're 95 years old, and 100 of them are young, healthy adults. Let's say that I infect all of them and 900 die, and then the 100 young, healthy people survive. Then due to that selection bias, when it comes time for reinfection of the actual virus, I would expect that reinfected population is going to do probably better than the vaccinated population because they're already going to be healthier. They're going to be less likely to be older people that were vaccinated. And you're already selecting for a group of people that survived one infection, so they're probably going to survive a second one. That's like a thing to keep in mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a name for this. It's called survivorship bias. Mm-hmm. That's the type of selection bias is called survivorship bias. And that is the main problem with the natural immunity studies. Now, what specific confounders it could have all sorts of confounders, but one is immunosuppression. Now, I know someone watching this is going to push back and say, "Oh, but they adjusted for immunosuppression."
Intellectually,
the studies adjust for immunosuppression as a binary variable when it's really a continuous variable. It's hard to adjust for immunosuppression as a continuous variable, but it really should be adjusted that way. And the reason for that is if you have 2.5 times greater the percentage of individuals who are immunosuppressed in one group compared to the other, just adjusting for whether a group is immunosuppressed or not immunosuppressed is not going to be sufficient. And the reason is because the individuals on both sides who are immunosuppressed, you wouldn't expect the same degree of immunosuppression. If you just have this bell curve and you have a drastic difference at the tails of the bell curve, there's going to be a big difference. The degree of immunosuppression is going to be expected to be larger in the vaccinated group than the non-vaccinated group. So just adjusting for immunosuppression as a binary variable is not going to cut it. Not to mention all the other confounders that come along with survivorship bias. So that's the biggest issue with the natural immunity studies. Does that mean it's a completely garbage study? It doesn't mean it's completely garbage. It means it has like a pretty significant limitation. And also I'll point out that it's not testing it against. It's also not putting up natural immunity against the most efficacious COVID-19 vaccine. That's the other thing to keep in mind.
Oh, it's collectively against all vaccines, right?
Okay.
Well, it should be collective. I mean, it should. Well, it depends. It depends what your question you're asking. If you're
well, I was thinking in regards to the Israel data, I'm guessing that was probably measured against all vaccines, not just one.
No, it was Pfizer.
Oh, that was just Pfizer.
It was Pfizer. Okay. Yeah, Pfizer is like the main vaccine that Israel is rolled out. If not, it's either the only one or the main one. I think I think it's the major one that overwhelming majority of the Israeli population are using is Pfizer. Mm-hmm. And so they were both natural immunity studies, both of those preprints in Pfizer were against, both of those preprints in Israel were against the Pfizer vaccine. I'd love to see, I've yet to see natural immunity compared to Moderna. I'd love to see that kind of data. But yeah. Any other things you want to throw out in terms of descriptive claims?
There was something there was something that same guy was talking about. They were talking about that specifically about like the natural immunity versus the vaccinated immunity, and saying that like that antigens weren't really something they were looking at, and that you're supposed to look at like memory T cells or memory B cells or whatever the fuck. Like, do you know anything about that? Like,
yeah, no, that's fine. But this doesn't. I'm not sure.
General question. I don't know if it like relates to anything, but it was something that when it was brought up, I was like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about anymore.
Yeah, the issue is that we don't just use antibodies for our immune system. There's cellular immunity as well, which is that you have immune cells that can attack cells infected with viruses, and that's important for especially viral infections. So, a lot of people will try to make statements about immunity. How much immunity do you have? And they'll like, well, what's your antibody level or something like that? And that's not really a good way of measuring immunity. It's certainly not a good way of evaluating if natural immunity gives more or less immunity compared to a vaccine group. And also cellular assays aren't really that best either. These are all proxies for outcomes that you need. What you really want to do is you want to have a cohort follow the cohort and adjust for the relevant confounders appropriately and look at the outcomes, because the outcomes subsume all that mechanistic speculation.
Okay, wait. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, more so than whenever that guy just like skimmed over it.
Yeah. Okay, so the real quick like layman's version to this, which is the only version I understand, is when you get sick, you have little things that float around your body called antibodies, and these things are what specifically target and kill, or at least mark for killing, or like inhibit the reproductive effects, et cetera, of like viral cells or like bacteria, or whatever.
Right. But I knew about that.
Yeah, but those things, whenever somebody talks about how immune are you, they always say like, oh, what's your antibody count? What's your antibody count?
Yeah.
But the problem is that like that's not like your immune system would suck if it just needed billions and trillions of antibodies constantly floating around your body in order to counter infections, because you can't have that many all the time. So what happens is you have these other cells. You've got memory cells, you've got CD4 cells, and what all these things do basically is the goal is when you get reinfected, are these cells able to recognize a specific pathogen and then not instigate, there's a word I'm looking for, but basically cause your cells to recreate more of those antibodies, and those are the markers.
Start the whole process all over again.
Yeah, those are the markers that you're looking for. So anytime somebody's like, "Oh, you have like low antibodies versus you have no immunity," that's absolutely not true. There are other ways to measure immunity, and there's a second thing that Abby said that nobody understands that's actually so fucking important. Okay, mechanisms are never an adequate explanation for like what will happen in a population. So for instance, you might be able to show that a drug has this mechanism or that a disease has this mechanism, but in order to be able to say it will help this many people or hurt this many people, you have to do a study following a particular cohort, following and seeing what happens with these people, because mechanisms are incredibly fucking complicated. So for instance, you might be able to show that like, hey, when you take this drug, it makes it so that this particular virus has a hard time reproducing. And that might be true, but when you go to actually study it in people, maybe it's the case that your average time of recovery is still the exact same. So you can't just say because you have a mechanism, and you say, oh, well, the mechanism does this. That doesn't mean you can just say, oh, well, this will help the disease. You have to actually do a larger study to prove the therapeutic effect. You can't jump from A to B. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. If you think about it, like the amount of mechanisms that go into a given question are like virtually infinite. And if you, the outcome, that's why we look at outcomes, because the outcomes contain all the mechanisms. You're looking at everything that's subsumed. It subsumes all of it. If we could, have a supercomputer to calculate at the molecular level for every question we would need an answer to, sure, by all means, but we're not there. That's why we need the outcomes. And if the outcomes contradict the mechanisms and the outcomes-based data is done well, then either your mechanism is just wrong or you're missing other mechanisms that countervail it or something like that.
Right. So, yeah. So could we go to the what do you think about like mandating for like children in schools and stuff?
Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be a normative question, and that's going to depend on your values. So it's going to depend on. So if you're a consequentialist, I can see utilitarian specifically, I can see a very good case for for the mandates. I think that they would reduce suffering. I think. I would think they would reduce far more suffering than they would cause. If you have a rights-based approach ethic, then it would depend on whether you consider these mandates to be some sort of rights violation, and whether you consider the prevention of suffering if that would outscale the rights violations. If you do consider those things to be outscalable. So that it would depend on what normative framework you're working with.
I guess I guess the way I'm looking at it for me, is more that like this, they aren't like children aren't being as affected by this virus, and it seems like we've never mandated, like we do mandate other vaccines like for schooling and stuff like that, but it's like we had how many different flu strains whenever all of us were in school. Like I'm 28, like I think almost the same age as Destiny. Like there were so many different like flu strains that came out, and I don't think I got maybe like one or two, and it wasn't because like we're like my family's like anti-vax or something like that. It's just like we just forget. Like there's like 8 kids in my family, and like I had a single mom. So it was like she just wasn't we're just getting to school and back. Like but so like it wasn't. I know that it's not exactly the same as the flu, and I know it's different. I know it evolves differently, but like the death rate and like the severity of it is really close. So I don't.
Well, wait. Well, hold on. When you say children are not affected by the virus, there are
not in the same way that obviously it's got to target like a target population. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the effects of the virus tend to be more severe with the elderly, of course. But the question here is going to be, a couple of things. So, first of all, you should know that there are questions regarding children that we haven't answered that plausibly can affect them in severe ways. We just mentioned one of them, by the way.
Right.
We don't know the answer to whether you're gonna have your child have permanent erectile dysfunction. Or long-term erectile dysfunction. This just hasn't been studied. It's been studied in every other age group.
We also don't know what the like effects are from like. And when I'm talking about like children, I'm talking about like elementary to like middle school, maybe like freshman high school, like the youngest possible. Sure. That I don't think is FDA approved yet, or like I don't think. And I think they were halting it in other countries for certain ages. I don't remember what the age range was.
For myocarditis, I can address that.
Yeah,
but if the response to that is saying, well, we don't know the long-term effects of the vaccine. I shouldn't say the vaccine from from vaccines. The response there is going to be, well, the disanalogy there is I'm giving you a reason to believe there may be a effect that could plausibly be there. I'm not just speculating something with no reason at all. As far as and something like that is going to take precedence over just randomly making something up or just saying like, well, there could be anything. Because I'm just going to be based. If that's the type of speculation that we're talking about, that's going to be superseded by saying, okay, well, actually, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. I'm saying, look, every age group otherwise has had this. We've analyzed it through, 60 and up. We've analyzed it through 40 to 60. We've analyzed it at 20 and 40. They're all showing the same thing. that increases my credence toward it plausibly being there in children. That's very different than if I didn't have that data and just saying, well, maybe this can happen. Maybe erectile dysfunction can happen in children. You see the difference between those two types of speculations? Okay, so that's one disanalogy. The other, so we have more of a reason to believe this than just something that we're not seeing anymore. The other thing in terms of the Nordic countries that I believe you're referring to, in terms of Moderna specifically, that they've halted it for.
They like
depending
started
on
it and then they stopped it or something, I think.
Yeah. Now what I will tell you is that I think I disagree with that. I think it's actually crazy, and most countries that offer Moderna have not done that. And the reason specifically is just the fact that if you run the numbers, the myocarditis rates are a wash if you get vaccinated versus not vaccinated. The reason is again, the rate was about 1 in 5,000 for young individuals.
Wait, you think it's crazy that they halted it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think that I do think that's crazy, and I'll tell you why. Because I'll go through their reasoning. So yeah, they halted it for age groups of 16, I believe to 30. I believe to 30, and after 30 you can get it. If you look at the data from 16 to 24, the rates of getting COVID, the rates of myocarditis from COVID. Myocarditis, by the way, is an inflammation of the heart. The rates are around 1 in 5,000 for that age group. That's the signal they saw that had them halt the Moderna vaccine. The rate, I'll point out to you that the rate of getting myocarditis from COVID, not the vaccine, but COVID itself, is 1 in 300. Right? It's over 10 times greater than that. Now, and if you want to factor in the probability, the decreased rate of young people getting COVID in the first place, the whole thing comes out to be a wash. It's about 1 in 6,000 with overlapping confidence intervals. So myocarditis should not be a reason to get or refuse the vaccine. It's not something, even for that age group, it's not something that should factor in either way. And if one wants to say the probability is to push higher for the male sex specifically, then I'm going to invoke the same precautions on the other end about erectile dysfunction, which is also just a thing for male specifically. So all the data that I've seen shows that if you actually run the numbers, it's just that concern is a wash.
But then what would be? So then I guess. So then what would be?
Wait, still don't. Let me just say one more thing. They've also banned it for. Yeah, the rates were higher among males in the 16 to 24 age range, but they are not allowing 26, 27, 28, 29-year-old females to get it, right? They've cut it off at 30. Now that's ridiculous, right? Females have a much lower rate of myocarditis from these vaccinations, and over 20. If you're over 24, you also have a much lower rate compared to if you're under 24. That looks. So I disagree with the first part, but the second part of not letting 28-year-old females get it, that's just insane to me.
Yeah, I don't know about all those little like nuance. I didn't even know that about like the 28-year-old, so 28-year-old females. So, so I guess what would your like main reason that you think that that kids should be vaccinated? Because I would be like. Their immune systems are much stronger and much more capable than like everybody else, and that it doesn't seem to like be as much of a risk to children than everybody else. The population.
Yeah. So the reasons are several-fold. So number one, the precaution for risks to the young individuals themselves. We've went over one of them. So definitely for male children, there is a potential plausible risk. That is could be long term, if not permanent. So that has not been ruled out, and there are good reasons to think that it should plausibly be could plausibly be. The other reasons for children getting vaccinated is prevention of spreading to other individuals, because children can spread the virus, and there is strong data showing that vaccination prevents transmission. Those are the main two. Yeah. So the main two reasons, not surprisingly, is number one, protection to self. Number two, protection to others.
But if all the parents and all the like elderly population are getting vaccinated, like I don't.
No, you can still spread. You can still spread it if you're okay. So we have.
You can still get it with even with the vaccine, but.
Well, but it makes it.
You're less likely to get hospitalized and have like severe complications, right?
But you're even less likely if both the index case and the contact case are vaccinated. So you can have 4 different possibilities, right? So by index case, I just mean the individual who has the infection. And by contact, I mean the individual who has acquired the infection from the index. Now, there's 4 possibilities. You can have both the index case and the contact case be unvaccinated. You can have both be vaccinated. You can have the index case vaccinated, the contact case unvaccinated, and then the index case unvaccinated, the contact case vaccinated. The lowest probability of transmission is when they're both vaccinated. Any other combination results in a higher rate of transmission. And that's the reason.
You don't... Okay, but then that's just why they should get... So do you think that it's okay like for the government to mandate that, though? Or you just think that they should?
So again, so that's going to be...
That's been my only main contention, too. Like, I was much more hesitant, like, when children, but just generally speaking, like...
The problem is that, like, if you're...
I was telling him earlier, like, I've got my vaccination, like, I work in healthcare. It doesn't really bother me, but, like, I just feel like...
The problem is that if you appeal to his, like, profession, right, as a doctor, all he can tell you are, like, here's the risks, here's whatever. But when it comes to making the actual decision of what should you do, the answers to that are a little bit outside of like a scientific question. Because some people will say curious. Like, we could all die, but as long as our rights to like bodily autonomy are protected, that's an okay gamble to take. And other people would say, fuck your bodily autonomy, like we need to do what we can to protect each other or whatever. So, but those questions all are kind of like outside the bounds of like a scientific discussion.
Yeah, it's more like moral questions or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly. So again, I mean, and that conversation can be had, but my answers are just going to be additional on what normative system you're operating. I can say, like, if you're a utilitarian, this is probably what makes most sense. If you're a deontologist and these are your specific deontic rules, this is probably what makes most sense. If you're a P equals U plus D-er, this is probably what makes most sense. I'm just kidding.
For me, it seems like it doesn't, and I don't know how, like, I don't know what the threshold is, but it seems to me like it doesn't cross, like, the threshold of being, like, it's such a severe case that it should be, like, mandated. Like, if I don't know, like, if, like, 5% of people were dying or 10%, like, I don't know what number it is, but, like, it seems like it's not dangerous.
Well, wait a minute, why do you...
Does that make sense? Like,
sure. No, I understand what you're trying to say. So I just want to point out one thing. Like, here's one thing I want to point out in this analysis. It seems like when you're looking at the benefits of vaccines, you seem to be just going straight to death. But when you're looking at the risks of vaccines, you seem to be including a lot of things. Like you're pointing out myocarditis. You're talking about all the the risks of injection into veins. You're talking about so what I would encourage you to do is not just limit the benefits of vaccines to a death metric. I would include morbidity metrics as well. Or what you can do is you can just, if you only care about death for whatever reason, and you don't care about suffering, then only consider death for the risks as well. So, but what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to only look at death for the benefits of vaccination and look at death and all the other risks under the sun for vaccination when looking at the risk benefit
or forgetting it when being unvaccinated. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So like, I know that there's other like risk factors for like or other complications that you can have getting it. I know there's been like athletes who have got it and they say like, oh well, they have like what are they, there's like a name they started calling it, like long COVID or whatever they called it. Like basically you like always have like shortness of breath and whatever, like you're basically not this. I know it was happening in athletes a lot. We're like talking about it publicly and saying that like they didn't feel the same after, and they didn't have the same like capacity and endurance after and stuff like that. But I mean, aren't these kind of things also happening with other, like with the flu and other viruses that we don't mandate vaccines for too? It's just not to the same.
This is true. Something that I want to back up
percentage.
Something to back up real quick to keep in mind, and nobody does this, and unfortunately we can't run reality 2 or 3 or 4 times, see how things look out. Something that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that with our current preventative measures, I think we've almost like completely eliminated the flu season this year in the United States, or last year. Like the reduction in flu cases was astronomical. I think it was over 95%, if I'm correct. If that is the case, and we still saw hundreds of thousands of people die of the coronavirus, like the idea of just going back to normal and forgetting it, like this seems to be such an unbelievably infectious thing, but we just don't know how much it is because our norm is like, this is how many people it infects when all of society is locked down, we're all wearing masks, we're all social distancing, and travel is like banned for half the year. So like, I think that the potential for it to be much worse, like even without a mutation or whatever, it still exists. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to have to do so. It's going to be a complicated risk-benefit analysis. But the point here is that I think that at the end of the day, that there are so many cases of this causing so much suffering, not just death, of this virus causing so much suffering. It's causing it's not just limited to like a medical thing. It's because it's around and causing so much suffering. It's causing economic devastation. It's causing like policies to change. It's causing people to have to go through all sorts of extra regulations and and hoops to jump through. It's just impacting the world. It's changed the world. And if you can get rid of a lot of that, if you can mitigate it, and you have just a bunch of people who are just being dumb fucks and they're just being like, well, no, I'm not going to get the vaccine because I believe what Joe Rogan said or something like that, or Brett Weinstein or whatnot, or at some point, if they're really causing people to get the infection and they're really causing them to suffer, then as part of society, I personally don't see it being unreasonable to say, you know what, fuck you guys, you're getting the vaccine if you want to be part of our society, or else you're just not going to be able to participate in these societal functions. Have fun. But that's going to depend on your norms.
Yeah, that's what I just have issue with that. I guess that's where my more like libertarian side comes out. I just feel like people should have a choice in it. Like,
well, let me ask you.
I get that it's a risk to everyone, but
it's not just a risk. It's a risk that's easily mitigatable with very little risk in the mitigation strategy. Like, it's a risk that's very easily decreased with very little risk to that strategy of mitigation. Let me just ask you this. Let's say let's just say smallpox. We lived in an era where smallpox only infected the elderly, right? Would you support like making the smallpox, or like polio, like if polio only affected the elderly, or all these vaccinations that we mandate for children? Would you support? And let's just say that children could spread it, and we were living in a world where those viruses existed and were prevalent. Would you now say that since children aren't infected with them, although they can transmit it, but since they're not infected with them, there's very low risk to the child, we should like lift all of those mandates for MMR, for polio. Would you say that we shouldn't be mandating those vaccines anymore for children?
I don't know. It would be. I don't think so. I think those are. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like those are much more severe.
So then, what's the difference?
In that, I guess.
Well, no. Actually, I don't know.
They do
well,
to the person.
Wait a minute. Well, they have. Well, okay. So yes.
I don't know enough about them to really like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just ask you this. Let's just say. Let's just say that. Well, okay. So really quick, the chance of dying if you get infected with COVID is lower than some of those other pathogens I mentioned. However, because they spread so much more, the total amount of deaths are actually fairly large. And worldwide, yeah. So if worldwide, including the United States, I believe, if you compared like the yearly deaths of COVID to something like when smallpox was a thing. The yearly deaths are not that far off, and it's not because COVID is more deadly per disease. It's just spreading so much more that whatever even if there's a small chance of death, it's spreading, getting so many more cases that it's getting more cases that result in these deaths. So let me just ask you that: if smallpox was here today, and if smallpox, just the infectiousness of smallpox increased dramatically, and the infection fatality rate, the chance of dying if you were infected, matched COVID, and children can spread it to adults, and children could not be killed with the smallpox. However, there may be some unknown long-term side effects that we have reason to believe may be the case in children. Would you then support lifting the mandates to go to school for vaccination for children for smallpox or polio or something?
I don't know, man. I don't think so.
Okay, but now you have an issue. Right?
Yeah, I know.
So if you're going to be agnostic on that, right, there's an inconsistency here. If you're going to be agnostic on that, but against the COVID mandate, then there's got to be some sort of difference, presumably, other than just the name of the vaccine or just the virus employer. There's got to be some sort of difference.
I mean, I've already had that impressed in my head, like what smallpox is too. So like,
yeah. So there's gonna but the thing is, like, I've already equalized those disanalogies, and you're now saying that you're not sure if you're hesitant. I can see I can hear the hesitancy in your voice of lifting those mandates. But when it comes to the same infection fatality ratio and the same risk for children, the same risk for adults, I just changed the name. All of a sudden, like you're against. You're like, no, I'm not okay with this mandate. But why?
Man, that's I don't know. I would have to do some internal digging, I guess. It just seems you've provided me with a lot of information to think about. Okay, I gotta be honest. I need to do some more digging into this. I thought I had a fair amount, enough to make a decision like that, or to think about it in that way. I mean, I got like myself vaccinated and stuff, but yeah, I've been pretty strongly like, I think people should have a choice or a decision to like get vaccinated or not get vaccinated.
Nacho, can I ask you?
Just not when it comes to all the other vaccines.
No, not. I don't know, man.
We're going to the same problem now. Like,
yeah, I know. I know that we already have and we already mandate a lot of vaccines, and I know that it's part of. I know that it's in. What is it, like the 10th Amendment or some shit, or like? I know that it's.
There was a Supreme Court case.
There's precedent already for this, so.
There's a precedent in Supreme Court case for mandating vaccines, but the point, regardless, that's not the point is that it's not that you just have this belief that everyone should have the choice, because you don't have that belief for these other vaccines.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you're very hesitant to say, oh, you should just have the rights. Like, no, you don't want to lift those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what exactly maybe all the qualifiers are, because. And maybe that's why I focus more on like the death rate, because that's an easier one to.
I already dialed that in. Right?
I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking about this on the fly, so I'm trying to walk you through my.
No, it's fine. Listen, if you want to take some time to, So here's the ultimate issue. The issue is I see an inconsistency in your position. The inconsistency is you seem to be hesitant to have a choice in vaccination for a given set of vaccines. You don't seem hesitant to have choice. You strongly support it for these specific, not the vaccine, but these specific COVID vaccines. And when you are offering these differences to account for that difference in your prescriptions, when I equalize them, you are not changing your prescriptions to match what you're offering. So either you have three options here. You can either say, well, I support freedom across the board, I want to lift all the vaccines. Yeah, I just choose whether it's measles, mumps, rubella, polio, whatever, diphtheria, I don't care. Or you could say, mandate all the ones I listed, or you can provide a difference that I already haven't equalized. And then you'd come to, those are the three avenues I see to come to a consistent position. You can think about it if you want. You don't have to answer now.
I don't know if I can answer right now. I can just tell you that I don't know, man.
Nacho, can I ask?
I mean, technically,
I think
you can, but that's going to be ridiculous.
Okay. I think you're pilling me. Okay, I've got a lot to think about.
Nacho, I have a question. I have this because yesterday or the day before when Colin Powell died, I had some feelings about it, and there's people who disagreed, and someone linked an article, and as I'm reading it, like I found myself in a moment where there's this desire to just kind of reject and stop reading, and it was like, nah, fuck, this isn't true, right? But I had to like push myself to further validate whether or not what I was reading actually countered what I believed, and to research it beyond the article and whatnot, and just to find out whether or not I actually believed it. So what I'm curious is when someone else is presented with something that counters their gut feeling or their beliefs or whatever, I'm curious if you're feeling that, if you can pinpoint it, if you can kind of like, I guess, talk to what's really sticking in your craw.
Are you just talking about like a cognitive dissonance in general, or are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. I try to avoid the words just because they get memed on, but yeah, like that cognitive dissonance.
One thing,
do you feel it sticking? Can you kind of point to it and say what exactly it is?
I don't really know. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like I have a lot to think about because I'm not really sure. Like, still where I would be getting hung up. I guess. I mean, I feel like I do as much reading as I possibly can. Like, I don't do like I do streaming as like a side hobby. So it's not something that I do like full time, like Destiny, where I can like literally just like research shit all day if I really want to or something like that. Right. I'm like working like 80 hours a week. So, but I listen to a lot of like audiobooks and shit, and I read as much articles and stuff as I can. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess I got some more digging to do on this one. But
yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, you can hit me up if you want.
Thank you for the information though. So
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, if you can send me like whatever, like you cited like a lot of
yeah.
Sources and stuff. Like, if you want to send me like any of that stuff, you can.
Yeah, actually, I'll link you to my Discord. I have like an archive of like all the studies I use for like across like a whole bunch of different topics, and they're all stored into like an organized Discord server.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd link Destiny too, but he still has me blocked.
Wait, on Twitter or what?
On Discord.
Why does he have you blocked?
Because I'm an infinity debater.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I just tried linking again. He still has. Yeah. All right. Well, let me link that to you. Hold on.
Okay, what's up? What happened?
All right, there you go.
Destiny, why do you have Homeboy blocked?
What, I have who blocked?
Ivy, apparently.
On what?
Oh, I tried to send him a link to the... Yeah, go. Oh, yeah, the joke was that he was coming around and I was sending him a link to all the studies, like a Discord server where I organize all the studies, and I was like, I would send just Destiny the link as well, but he still had me blocked.
Okay, I unblocked you, buddy.
There you go. All right, cool. All right, well, yeah, like I'm happy to follow up if you have any other questions about any of the data we talked about. And and look, one thing is, thank you for your intellectual honesty and like admitting that you didn't have an answer, you need more to think about it. So a lot of people like dig their heels in on this kind of stuff. So yeah, I appreciate the intellectual honesty.
I'm not I don't know, man. I've done a lot of soul searching here in the past like fucking year and a half. Okay.